Welcome into the Backroads Bill podcast. I'm Ben, and on this podcast, we generally will talk about canoeing trips, road trips. Heck, we even talked about treks at one point and the trips that come along with that. But today we are focusing on the kind of trip that revolves, excuse the pun, around two wheels. And our guest today, Buck Miller, was a former professional cyclist, and he joins the podcast today to chat about his days as a professional, what it's like to take camping gear on a bike, doing a multi-day trip, which is absolutely insane, by the way. Like, the amount of stress that puts on your body to have to cycle and also have all this equipment on you is wild. So what he says about that is crazy. And why he's a much bigger fan of Northern Ontario, the most northern reaches of our province, versus where he lives now in Huntsville. A lot of really interesting things from him. It was a great conversation, so let's get right to it after a word from today's title sponsor, the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation.
Imagine the power behind your generosity, month after month. When you join the I Give Monthly Club, your support helps provide state-of-the-art medical equipment and essential care for our community. Every month, your gift, big or small, adds up to something powerful, ensuring our local hospital has the tools it needs to provide exceptional care for our friends and loved ones. Join over 220 generous monthly donors who are already making a life-changing impact. From essential equipment like MRI machines to life-saving cancer care, your commitment, month after month, helps transform lives. Signing up is easy. Visit nbrhcfoundation.ca to join. Your monthly gift helps ensure our community's healthcare stays strong and accessible all year round.
So today's episode is kind of in the same vein as what we had last week with Brian, except we're doing it in a little bit of a different fashion, Bill. Today we bring on Buck Miller. Buck, welcome to the Backroads Bill podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, Ben, we've had Adam Schultz on the program, the Indiana Jones explorer par excellence, known for his many books. And I put Buck in the same kind of category, maybe at a regional scale, but he's done expeditions that we're going to talk about today, and even more so into the future, that I think it's a unique individual. You also had, that polar explorer who rode her trike from the edge of the Ross ice shelf to the South Pole. And so we want to know more about what drives these people to do these crazy things, that for people listening and looking at the Backroads Bill podcast. So again, welcome, Buck, and we'll get right into it. Tell us a little bit about where you are right now and a little bit about your background, your cycling background, because I think that's important when we segue into why you do all this stuff.
Yeah, so I live in Huntsville, Ontario right now, and I was born in Spruce Rock Falls, kind of by way of Abitibi Canyon, Kapuskasing, and the town of Nipigon, Ontario. And then right before high school, my dad's hydro job moved us to Niagara Falls. So I spent my high school time there, and during that time, I took an interest in cycling because a friend of mine in school liked mountain biking. So I kind of looked at it. I was into fishing, but couldn't really do as much of that in Niagara as I wanted to. And I checked out the mountain bike thing and all those magazines. It looked amazing. So I kind of got into it, like basic low-level Canadian Tire bike right away. And my dad kind of noticed that I was really into it and had an affinity for it and was pretty good at it. It was the only thing I seemed to care about. So he put me in nothing to do with mountain biking. My dad, when I was 13 years old, put me in a ride for heart and stroke, which was a 100-mile road ride. And I was 13 years old. And he had no idea what he was doing. And he's just like, oh, you like riding bikes? So try this heart and stroke ride. I thought it would be maybe 100 kilometers. It was 100 miles. So I did it in 9 hours.
That's exactly what happened with us and the stupid canoe race. well, stupid's maybe an aggressive word.
Yeah,
let's do 60 kilometers in a canoe.
Yeah, and of course, Ben and his partner did not did not finish the race, but we're not going to talk about that. But also, just out of reference, we've had also someone on the Backroads Bill podcast who told us about the history of Abitibi Canyon. So that was another thing. So and that's I think a good segue, Buck, into. I mean, we just had Brian on last week because Brian and I drove from Peawanuck. We had to do it twice, obviously, up to Peawanuck, back through Fort Severn. But in 2020, during COVID, you with two other partners in crime, so to speak, and flew up to Peawanuck and rode back. But tell us first of all, because we got lots to talk about, but tell us first about the Wapusk Trail and that epic adventure.
So I'm gonna fix you on the Wapusk. It's Wabusk. The
Okay.
P is a B in Cree, so it's known as the Wabusk Trail. We flew up there, in 2020, February of 2020, and I just wanted to ride my bike down it. I thought, what a crazy cool place to visit. My dad had been there, so I'd heard stories about it when I was a kid, and I knew that it had the longest winter road in the world at 750K, so I thought I'd give it a shot, and 3 of us flew up for charity. We raised $12,000 or so for True North Aid, and we spent 7 days riding the Wabash Trail.
Yeah, because I know you raised money because some of that went to Shamattawa, which is in Manitoba, but that was. But tell us about in some of the pictures that again you sent to me for one of my stories about putting up the bear fence around your campsite.
Yeah, so there, as you know, there are bears on the trail. We didn't see any bears in our 7 days on it, but we saw lots of tracks. Some passing by our camp very close, because we knew this because we rode up to that point, didn't see any tracks, and then the grader would go by, and in the night every now and then, and there'd be fresh tracks after the grader went by. And the grader went by at 3 a.m. So we found them up to 900 yards or 900 meters from the tent site a few times. So they're around.
Now that was self-supported, and you were on Fat Tire bikes. Tell us about some of the challenges, because I know near the very end, like your bikes were starting to wear down, your body's starting to wear down because it was cold. You maybe just describe the conditions that you encountered then.
Yeah, so conditions were actually brutal. They were really cold. It was a very cold March for us. Like we were seeing 35 below every single night. Our daytime highs maybe got to minus 22, 23. And it was always super, super windy. But truthfully, when we landed there, we didn't know if we could do it at all. Getting local information on the road is very hard to do. And then getting locals, trying to explain to the locals that we're going to ride bicycles down this road. So what are the conditions like for fat bikes? So it was really, we just left with our gear. We're like, well, maybe we can get to Fort Severn. And then once we get to Fort Severn, we're like, okay, sweet. Did that in 2 days, 100K a day. That's amazing. Maybe we can get to Shamattawa. Let's try, we kind of pieced it out like that. And, we only saw 12 vehicles on the road in 7 days. That's how little traffic there is. So it's not like a highway. The James Bay Winter Road, for example, from Attawapiskat to Moosonee, you can skate on. It's very bumpy, but it's hard, bumpy ice. So you could actually skate on it for a long, long way, almost the whole way in some conditions. But this road is nothing like that. It is just full of bumps and muskeg grass sticking out. It was crazy. It was very, very rugged.
Yeah, I mean, we even found that it being in a vehicle, but nonetheless. But going back, Expeditions Ontario, 2018, it was 9 days crossing Algonquin Park, 175 kilometers. You followed that up in 2019, 650 kilometers from Attawapiskat right through on the Whedon Road back to Smooth Rock Falls, where you're born. But tell us a little bit about those. Was the Algonquin Park kind of a warm up to the next one, or? How did that go?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So the whole Expeditions Ontario thing came about by me. I used to be a professional cyclist. I was on the Canadian national team. I raced in Europe and Asia and all over North America for years. I got paid to race bikes for a while. And then right after I quit racing, or some would say retired from my career, I was 27 or 28, and my wife and I got a job in Moosonee right away. So we went straight up there. And I was so happy to be living in Moosonee, to be back in the north. But I was still looking for that way to the type 2 fun, they call it, because I was an athlete for so long. Just going to work every day and paddling on the weekends wasn't quite enough. So I was always looking for something crazier and harder to do. So after 5 or 6 years, we moved out of Moosonee. That brought us to Huntsville, And then I kind of reconnected with a bunch of old athlete friends of mine. They were like, I was just chomping at the bit to do something in the wild. That's how we crossed Algonquin. And then after Algonquin, my two buddies who were long in the tooth cyclists, Algonquin, by the way, we did on skis. So after Algonquin, we looked north to the James Bay Winter Road, because I remember two guys from Sault Ste. Marie went from Albany to Moosonee on fat bikes once. So when I was there, I met them in the community, and I was like, I knew you could do it. I didn't own a fat bike at the time, so we went back up and gave it another shot.
Yeah. Now, 2020 was an epic year, Ben, for Buck, because not only did he do that in March in 2020, then August 2020, the 750-kilometer Trans-Taiga Road in northwestern Quebec. Tell us a little bit about that road and how you approached that, and how different is it between, winter and summer cycling?
No, it's day and night. Huge differences. It's so much easier to ride in the summer for many reasons. There's no snow. Setting up camp is awesome. Really the challenge, and you're already fit coming into summer because you've been riding. But whereas winter, you need to kind of really commit yourself to a training program. And as a dad, and as I own my own business, I'm not a high level athlete anymore. So I'm not really interested in trying to keep super duper fit. I can't dedicate 20 hours a week to fitness all winter long, so I can go on these 1 week bike rides with my buddies. I can't let my family's time suffer just to do this thing. So the summer, it's just so much easier. The hardest part was packing enough food for us on our bikes. We flew to the end of the Trans-Taiga Road at the Kanapiskau Reservoir, as far as you can get a gravel road. We landed on float planes, and we rode our bikes over 7 days and just camped along the way and fished on the rivers and creeks and lakes as we went. And it was just unbelievably beautiful. It was probably my favorite trip. The only issue was bugs, but coming from Northern Ontario, it wasn't a problem for me. I did have a friend from Boston, Massachusetts, who was with us on that trip, and the bugs were pretty bad for him. He had never really experienced anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those variables, Ben, and of course, we've talked about actually on another podcast about the evolution with John Pino about the Black Fly song, the kind of so-called national anthem of Northern Ontario. But
song.
Yeah, and yes, and of course you know that Abitibi Canyon Way, because the lyrics in the song is about the little Abitibi and turning it around the other way, and so they did, and so 2024. You had a bit of a hiatus there, but I suspect it was you had family and work things in between. But you tried from Pewanuck back to Moosonee, and I know you're going to go back and do that. Tell us about what the difficulty was on that cross country ski trek.
Oh boy, when we last winter we flew up to Pewanuck, and I had all kinds of logistics in place, ready to go to get us a skidoo. Like it would be a 250-kilometer skidoo ride from Pewanuck to the Cape, where we would start our trip from the Cape south. Well, we had all kinds of issues go wrong. When we got there, our skidoo ride couldn't bring us for another 5 or 6 days because there was a death in the community, and Pewanuck is only 225 people. So when a death happens, it's not like, things shut down, right? Because it affects absolutely everybody. So we had to, sitting in town, waiting around, we didn't have all that time. We were supposed to be on the bay pretty well the day after, maybe 2 days after we landed. So we were eating into our time that our emergency ration time, basically. Eric and I, two of my partners, we own businesses. One guy, Dave Jackson, who is a phenomenal traveler. He's from lives in Red Rock. He had all the time in the world because of his job style, but we had to be back by a certain time, so we couldn't sit around too long. We still attempted. We left the community, and we thought, you know what? If we get to Pewanuck, that's still 500 kilometers. So it's the same distance. If we get to Attawapiskat, it's still 500 kilometers. Same distance, different route, but whatever. We went for it. We got out on the bay, and the conditions were different than, I wouldn't say they were harder than what we expected. The conditions were good, but they were different than the equipment that Eric and I had brought with us. So it made traveling incredibly hard. So really, at the goal of 20 kilometers a day would not have been attainable, and we're both pretty fit and ready to go. So Eric actually ended up developing a sore ankle somehow, and he was concerned about it as the day went on and the next day went on, and he thought we better turn around now because if this gets worse, we're going to be further from rescue, right? And we'll be sitting out here for a while in polar bear country, sitting in a tent with nothing to do while we wait for a skidoo pickup or worse, a heli medevac. So we skied back to the community, and Eric went to the nurse's station, and he was diagnosed with a bone infection in his ankle. Crazy rare. I don't know, it's wild. It happened. He did step on a staple about 10 days before the trip. He sent me a picture of it, oddly enough, 10 days before the trip. But I guess that's where it came from. It's crazy. It's crazy that it happened. I don't know what to say. So we're going to attempt it again.
Yes, you are. So this past year, and recently, I should say, you did the snowmobile trek to kind of scout it out again. And tell us about where you're going to start from and where the destination is and how you're going to prepare for this, I guess, probably next year.
Yeah, so next year, there's many levels to it. My ski selection was wrong, which I can't believe. I picked a ski, a nice wide backcountry ski with metal edges that should have been perfect for the trip, and I just couldn't get enough bite on my skis to pull my pulk. We were on the tundra, which that area of Ontario has the world's lowest, most southernmost tundra, and there was some kind of gads and alder and small saplings sticking through willows that kind of prevented us from being able to pull those toboggans properly, which we could go out on the ice, but in order to go out on the ice, you're much further from the tree line. You have no chance of getting wood for a fire for your wood stove. So we'll probably end up using a shorter ski with less glide and more traction. That'll help a lot. We're going to bring really big snowshoes because, oddly enough, we were busting through when our skis didn't work. We busted through quite easily on our snowshoes. We didn't have the biggest snowshoes because we were expecting harder pack conditions. So that's two big things that'll easily get us up to 20 kilometers a day.
You'll probably want that Athabasca type of snowshoe.
Yeah, so I have a similar snowshoe to that, and they were just left at home.
I was really curious about kind of like the logistics, and you talked about it a little bit where, you had somebody have an injury and you have to kind of go back. The first thing that comes into my mind is, when people go on adventures, if they're in a canoe or if they're in a skidoo or whatever, when you're biking and you're going on a 7-day trip, how do you handle, I guess, all the food and everything that you need to be able to survive over those 7 days without it like really bogging you down?
It bogs you down. You don't handle it. Yeah,
I guess that's one
suffer.
answer.
Yeah, you just suffer. So we, on the Wabash Trail, for example, we were 7 days. Our average moving speed was like barely 15 kilometers an hour. Like, a cross-country skier can do better than that.
So just for context for people, like how fast would you normally be going assuming you didn't have any baggage?
Oh, 25 kilometers an hour. Yeah. It's a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. So like when you're going on that 7-day trip, how much stuff do you have to bring? And do you have like a rough approximation of like weight that you had on each of you?
Yeah,
or?
sort of. Yeah, our bikes, including gear, were about 100 pounds each. So we had probably 60 pounds of food, 50 pounds of food, a little bit of camping gear, and our bikes are pretty light. They're modern. They're high end. Full of Shimano components and carbon fiber everywhere. Like our bikes are pretty well the best of the best. So what weighs us down is just our camping gear and our food. Yeah,
and I guess out of all the different ways you could do, I guess, traveling, whether it's like canoe or it's whatever, I feel like biking, outside of maybe hiking, biking's probably the most difficult. Is that fair?
Well, for me, I don't think so, because it's what I do. So I have a much harder time adjusting to hiking. I think it's just what you're used to. But, I find marathon canoe racing super hard too. And I love doing that. It's probably the hardest thing, one of the hardest things I've ever done, marathon canoe racing. That's wild. So, yeah, I just think what you're used to is what is the easiest.
So here on the Backroads Bill podcast, we talk about the outdoors a lot. And one of the best things happened in this past couple of weeks. It's officially spring. I went outside yesterday. It was 18 degrees. It was absolutely immaculate. It was so great. It's sunny. There's no more snow on the ground. Wherever you live, you're probably in the same boat if you're in Ontario. Maybe not if you're in the most northern reaches, but but everywhere else. And that means it's time for a lot of people to get a little bit more active. You get out of maybe the seasonal depression or the slump that you had in winter, and you're getting out there. You're going for walks, cycles, bikes. You're going out into the back roads, etc. Or maybe you're putting your hand into a sport. Of course, I did recently get coerced into playing softball, which is something that, I used to play baseball, and it's been a while. It's been since high school. So, yeah, a good 10 to 12 years since, that makes me feel old, since I've played it. And let's just say I wasn't winning any awards then. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see how much they regret asking me. But, it's... one of the things that came up with it, though, was I'm like, there's so many considerations. Like, you got to get a new glove, you got to get new cleats, you got to get new equipment, right? And so right away, I thought, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go down to Source for Sports and try and get some new stuff. And, Paul and his team is absolutely fantastic down there. They outfitted me with everything that you would possibly need. Of course, obviously coming from baseball or I should say hardball, is there differences with softball. They're able to answer all my questions. They had some of the best gear, not that I bought the best gear, but they had some of the nicer gear that you could get. They gave me a great deal on it. So, if this spring, summer, fall, etc., if you find yourself in a similar situation, I highly suggest that you pop on down to 1321 Fisher Street so that they can set you up with all of your sports needs. And I'm not just saying that because I'm obligated to, and they're a sponsor on today's show, which they absolutely are, but also because they genuinely helped me. So it's a personal endorsement as well as a contractual obligation to have them on the show. But thank you so much. Again, go down to 1321 Fisher Street so Paul and his team can set you up on your way. And a big thanks again to Source for Sports for helping me personally, but also being a great sponsor of the Echo Community Podcast Network. Get in and go at North Bay Toyota. From the bold and adventurous RAV4 to the fuel-efficient and stylish Corolla Cross to the powerful and rugged Tacoma, there's a Toyota for everyone. Need extra space for the family? The Highlander, Grand Highlander, and Sienna. Want to go green? Check out Toyota's complete lineup of hybrid vehicles like the Prius, Camry, Crown, all-new Crown Signia, and more. Get in and go at North Bay Toyota. Visit them at 640 McEwen North Bay or toyota.com for details.
Tell us about that transition when you stopped riding professionally and started life as you know it today, but that need to accomplish. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's really weird how I didn't hear about that happening to any of my other friends. I didn't. Most of my friends just transitioned into quit cycling and just carried on with life and gained weight and stopped riding. But I kind of moved, like when I quit, I moved to Moosonee, which is as an outdoorsman, it's certainly not a land for athletics where people think of athletics, but for adventure, for canoe routes, like every single river and creek the train crosses, you can get in and paddle out and fish and camp in these beautiful wild places and see no signs of humans. So I really just kind of doubled down on the adventure side of my life, the stuff that I couldn't do while I was living and racing all over the world. A month a year, October or November, I'd usually go up north, see some friends at Kapuskasing, spend a week partridge hunting, camping in the bush, and then I'd be back south to living in Arizona, training again until Christmas, and then come home for Christmas, then head back south again. So I really just tried to catch up on all of my outdoor escapades. And it was while I was there that I was like, there's so much more to this than just hunting and fishing. Like, I'm still looking at riding my bike from Moose River Crossing to Moosonee down the side of the river with a pack raft crossing so I can cross all the rivers that come in. Just for fun. Like, it's just something I want to do. I get so much out of that. I get athletics. I get to feel, wasted at the end of the day. I get adventure. I still get to, drink water from the river and eat fish from the land. Feels
tell us more about one of the things that struck me when you sent me copy for the last week or the 2 weeks ago story, there was that where does all this passion come from Northern Ontario, and you speak so eloquently about it, and you can the chi that's in there, it's in your blood.
Yeah, so I've thought about this, and people have asked me this a lot. They're like, wow, you really, I really like it. And I'm like, well, just yesterday I was working for a friend of mine here in Huntsville. He lived with me in Moosonee, and he's just like, oh gosh, what a time. That was crazy. And, I'd never go back. Or he's over it. He's burnt out of the North. He's kind of born and raised here, went up there for 2 years, kind of did that, like, get that culture shock, just buried himself in work while he was there, didn't immerse himself in the culture, and come back and retreat home, right, to the familiar life of Central Ontario. I feel like I was stripped of my childhood in Northern Ontario. When my dad told us we were moving to Niagara Falls, I was like, what? Like, why would we leave? My dad didn't have a choice. His job with Hydro, it was a forced move. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. So we made the best of our time while we were in the South, but forever, I was always being called, like, that connection, that pull back to the North never left, and really just grew stronger and stronger in me forever. I don't even like living in Hudson right now. I'd rather not be here. I'd rather be in Moosonee or Northern.
I was gonna ask you that, like, how you liked living in Huntsville, or how it was I guess different from living in Moosonee, but I guess you kind of already answered that a little bit. But is there anything else that you find different between the two places that really kind of you don't like, or?
Yeah, everything. Like, I don't like anything about here. I mean, this place has made me a capitalist. Like, it's a great, there's a lot of work here. It's a great place to work. It's a stereotypically perfect place to raise your family because there's lots of work. There's a lot of educated people, strong influence from Toronto's vibrant arts culture. These are all things in Muskoka. That's great. There's also, like, tons of millionaires, if that's your thing. But I don't relate to this. These aren't my people.
Yeah. Well, tell us and tell the viewers and listeners, what do you do? Because we heard about this offline, but tell us what you do.
I'm an arborist. I own my own business. I climb trees, dangerous trees, remove trees, prune trees, fix trees, keep them alive, tie them together, do all kinds of things.
And what brought you into that? And obviously there's, like, the nature component, but going from cycling, why did you say, you know what, this is what I want to do?
Well, a couple of reasons. Necessity. It was always a job I wanted to try, but I didn't have an opportunity. And then, like, living in Moosonee, there's not many big trees leaning over people's houses. Quite small trees up there compared to here. But once I did get the opportunity, it was just perfect for my type of personality, for my physical interests. Like, I love it. It's like getting paid to exercise. So I really do like it.
And how do you, what's the training involved with that? Do you have to, I'm sure there's not schooling, but are there apprenticeships, or do you just kind of say, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, no. So it's not a Red Seal trade. It's not recognized by the government as by the College of Trades in Ontario. So you can just fly by night and be rogue. You can go lie to an insurance company, tell them how little experience you have, or tell them how much experience you have, although you have none, and just be a crazy tree guy that, and some people do that. But there is some training you can take. There is studying you can do to become a certified arborist or a certified tree worker. You can do. There is a college program. It's not mandatory. And it has nothing to do with being a certified arborist. There are two different avenues you can take, but any education you can get in it is absolutely mandatory.
Yeah, and so a little earlier in the conversation, you said you may not necessarily relate to people there. Do people relate to you when they find out a little bit more about Buck Miller?
No, they don't. They tell me I should have age appropriate hobbies. That I'm crazy for taking time off work to go do these things. They really, no one gets it. Some people think it's cool, but they're just like, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? You're 42. You should be like, what do you have in your RSPs and tax-free savings?
Yeah, well, I'm older than you, and I'm not 23 anymore, and I'm not 42, so I can relate very well. But I asked Adam Schultz once about, when you're out there, and there's actually two questions, but the first one is your emotional attachment to the land and what you get out of that. because you are a nature guy. You've got your background growing up and how that came about. But that emotional intelligence, what do you get out of nature when you're out there?
Oh man, I mean, I don't suffer from mental health. I never have, and I feel terrible for people who do. And I believe that, like, my connection to the land is what rights me. I can't. It's like I can't go without it. If I go too long without it, like, my life sucks. Nature is what keeps me happy. It's what keeps me. It's what inspires me. It's what is my majority of my life has been guided by nature, and decisions I've made have been so heavily influenced by where I can go, what I can do. Like, one of my favorite things to do in the world is call my dad and pour over maps while we're on the phone together and see where we're going to go to next year, fly into next year, or check out next year, or paddle here. Can we get there? It's just.
Are you a paper map guy, or are you a GPS guy?
I'm both. I do them both. Yeah, I have a ton of amazing maps from James Bay from my time up there.
And one of Adam Schultz's books is that, the history of Canada in 10 maps. And of course, maps, I have boxes and boxes of topo maps that I probably have thousands of dollars worth of topo maps, and maps tell stories. And then of course they end up giving you the story because you've figured out where you have to go, whether it's contours, river crossings, length, rapids, whatever it might be. So that's really it. The other question is about Adam Schultz, of course, has done many of his adventures by himself. Have you done any, and then I know there's a safety component, have you done anything long-term, long distance by yourself? And does that excite you at all?
Yeah, it always interests me, but I never have, not for any other reason. I actually met Adam Schultz in Moosonee. He wrote about me in one of his books. He wrote a page about our meeting in Moosonee. I just never have, because everything I do, I've always had my buddy, like Nathan, my brother-in-law Nathan, has done a lot of trips with me. Nathan Galt from Ottawa, because we're best friends, and he loves doing the same thing I do. I share. I like to share. I would do something solo if I have no reason that I haven't. I just always have someone to share it with. Now my son is 8 years old. He's really taking to the outdoors because he's been born and raised in it. My daughter likes it as well, but not as much as my son. So now it's like to consider going to do something solo makes me kind of like, I feel pretty guilty because I should be sharing this experience with my son, right?
Yeah, and I was corresponding with Adam Schultz the other day because he does hikes up at the Canadian Ecology Center in the guided hikes, and brings people in who are followers of himself. And of course, his third child is on the way. And he mentioned his first son, how already, even though at a young age, that's the next evolution of, you no longer are a professional bike rider, and then you're working, you get married, you have a family, but the pursuits are still there.
Yeah, absolutely. The pursuits are still there. They're just taking longer to achieve, because when I'm out there, I can't paddle 40 kilometers in a day or 50 kilometers in a day because I've got an 8-year-old with me.
That's fair. As we start wrapping things up here, I guess, what out of everything that you've done in your career, where has been your favorite adventure and your favorite place in, I would say, in Ontario, outside of Moosonee, because we've already established Moosonee? Yeah.
Okay. I always said if there was a gun pointed at my head right now and I had to live in one town for geographic reasons only, not economy, geographically speaking only, it would probably be Nipigon, Ontario.
You want to ask me that question, Ben?
I will. Okay. What's Bill? What's your? Where would you live?
Well, it's like I was wondering if it would be the similar, but I know going around in Buck's mind, similar things. Mine is Wawa, just because it's a great jumping off spot to Lake Superior Provincial Park, then Puckasaw, and then into the Chapleau Game Preserve. So I've always toyed with the idea earlier in my life that's what went in place. Nipigon has similar, you can go in a whole bunch of different compass directions as well. You've got Lake Superior, you've got Lake Nipigon, which I've paddled on, and been into Wabakimi and so on and so forth. So what other reasons would you like to be in Nipigon?
Yeah, no other reasons. The geography, just as you said, it's got incredible hiking, trail running, fishing, hills, swamps. It's got game. It's got everything. It's kind of like it's Ontario on steroids. I just love, and I'm not a big provincial park guy, so I didn't grow up using provincial parks. So I'm not used to, areas having a lot of value because they're close to a provincial park. Generally that scares me away, especially now that I live in Huntsville. But I do know that, Wabakimi and some of the parks in Northwestern Ontario are gigantically vast and wild. But Nipigon has the best fishing, hunting, ice climbing, trail running.
Exactly. It'd be one of those go-to spots, and just haven't done it yet. We've tried once in a vehicle, and again, I'm not 23 anymore. We tried to drive around Lake Nipigon. There's still one section you can't get through on a road. We came to the dead end, and it was a tertiary winter road, so we would have got stuck. It's very close. And I think we'll try that again sometime. But I mean, pursuits are pursuits. Again, as you age, you have to figure out what is your next challenge, even though the mode of transformation might be different. But so now, okay, and I wanted to remember, and it's not in my notes, did the Cross Killarney thing go on or not?
Yeah, so I actually got sick right before Killarney. The guys went, I couldn't go. Literally the day before we were supposed to leave, I was over a bucket. I couldn't do it. It was terrible.
So they made it?
Yeah, they made it in no time at all. They had great conditions, and they filmed the whole thing, and they made a nice video of it. Eric Batty.
Now, a lot of your adventures are on YouTube, and people can, and Buck or Ben will put some links there. Now, just tell us again as we wrap up, Ben. But for Buck, tell us again about next year's epic ski trip. Just take us on the geography of that, so people can get prepared and start thinking about following you next year.
Yeah, so next winter we're considering there's two options. We might kite ski from Peawanuck all the way to Moosonee, so we'll be on skis. That'd be 700 kilometers. We'll be on skis with like a parasail kite up in the sky pulling us. It's still incredibly hard. It is not cheating by any means. To sit on your skis that long every day and take a pounding that the bay will give you with all that frozen surface, and it is unbelievably rough, would be incredibly challenging. It might actually be harder than just skiing. Skiing would take longer, but it would be easier on our bodies than kite skiing.
I agree, and of course you're pulling your expedition toboggan too.
That's right. So we'd be either kite skiing all the way from Peawanuck to Moosonee. If we did that, then Expeditions Ontario would have a line from Gillam, Manitoba, all the way to Smooth Rock Falls.
Wow.
So we kind of want to connect that line, but we don't have enough time to cross-country ski that 700 kilometer section. The other option is take a ski ride to the Cape using James Bay Adventures, which is an outfitter in Moosonee. He would drive us up that Wapascat. We'd get on his skidoos, and he'd drop us off at Cape Henrietta Maria, the corner of James and Hudson Bay, and we would ski 500 kilometers back to Moosonee. That's the other option. It's probably going to be in February or March next year.
Ben, 64 kilometers on the Mattawa River. What do you think?
I could not even make it 10 kilometers. So kudos to you for being able to do that.
The Mattawa River, my first year doing it with my wife, Jenny, was incredibly challenging. That was super hard. And we've done it 4 times since. And we raced the Rec B category. We've won every year. And this year we're racing Rec A. And next year we're going to try and race the Yukon River Quest from 750K from
750 kilometers.
Yeah, and it's midnight sun, so you race around the clock.
Yeah.
How long does that take to finish?
I think it's like 60 hours.
Now, is that the Yukon 1000?
No, they call it the Yukon River Quest. That's all I know.
Okay, yes. So we're going to have somebody on the Backroads Bill podcast, somebody from North Bay. Sean, I've forgotten his last name. I talked to him the other day. He's going to be on because he's doing it this year.
Wow!
Because you have to apply for it.
Yeah,
you have to take like a fitness test or something.
Well, you get interviewed. I think, Buck.
Yeah. I think it's more of a. I'm just going through I'm starting the process as we speak, and it's more of a. They want to make sure if you're going solo, it's a bit of an interview. It's a bit more, but if you're going with a partner, so my wife and I are going, they just want to make sure you have backcountry experience. You've been on big rivers, and you know how to camp. But if you're going solo, it is a bit more of a. It's a bit harder to get in.
It's Sean Lougheed from North Bay is going with his sister-in-law and training like crazy, and approximately 6,000 people apply.
Wow. How many people?
That I've forgotten already, but
I believe they only let 130 or 40 boats in.
Yeah, and you can't do anything. You can't be any nefarious planning too, because they'll kick you out of the race.
How much does it cost to get into this thing?
It's actually not that crazy. There's a race in Muskoka that is more. It's $1,300 to get into that race, and the race Muskoka River X is about $1,500.
Yeah, and Sean's done that. So we'll have Buck and Jenny back, and we're gonna have Sean Lougheed and his because this is like some of those ultimate ultra races, and 64 kilometers.
Seems a lot smaller now.
It seems a lot smaller. Buck, you're an Adam Schultz type, and I don't want to identify you, but people that go on adventures are adventurers, and it's something in the psyche and the love of nature, and you've combined it all. And thanks for being on the Backroads Bill podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
A big thank you to Buck for jumping on the podcast with us today. Listening to him talk about his long trek with camping gear, I said this at the top of the show, just the strain that you'd have to put on your back, on your shoulders. You talk about doing something for the love of it, and I think that perfectly encapsulates that phrase right there. Lots of props to him for that, but you know what? If you love it, you love it, right? So if you enjoyed today's episode of the Backroads Bill podcast, you can find more episodes of this show on your favorite podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify. The video version, of course, is available on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel, and everything can be found at northbayecho.ca. New episodes of this podcast drop every single Wednesday morning. So that wraps things up for us here. Please give us a like, share, comment. It helps us continue to grow our show, and we will see you again next week for yet another Backroads adventure.